Hey, we're going to get started in about 2 minutes or so.
Yeah, go get a donut.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the ELTAC meeting, or the Environmental Technical Advisory Committee meeting. Going to get started here. You stop the screen sharing. So if I can ask all the ELTAC members to turn on the camera and say hello for our roll call vote. And for that, I'll pass it over to our scribe, Jen McLaren.
Good morning. First, Peter Art.
Present.
Samuel Choi.
Present.
Augustine Pieri. Over there.
Present.
And in for Sushmitha is Paul Monroy.
Present.
Judy Morgan. Oh, not here. Saguna Pillay. Seeing her pop in and out. Oh, she said she's present, having camera issues in the chat there. Okay.
Okay. Suguna's here. She'll work on her audio and visual.
Teresa Johnson.
Present.
James Forrest.
Present.
Kelvin Ewan.
Present.
Rachel Cahill.
Present.
Melissa Hall.
Here.
Ronita Prasad.
Present.
John Franco Saraceno. Not here. Okay. Erica Calve. Coming later. Okay. Moy Koltunov.
Present.
And Chris Hand.
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Yes. And I am also here.
All right, thank you, everyone. With that, I'd like to open the floor up to our state regulatory agencies for any update they wish to provide. I know, Melissa, you gave me some PowerPoint slides, so if you want to do yours first, we can do that.
Sure. Let me get set up to share. And it would help if I could remember how to share slides right now.
It's been a while since we used Zoom. It's the green button at the bottom of the screen.
Oh, the only one that has color that should stand out to me. Okay. Not sure I've got this quite right. Anyway, we have just for the drinking water regulatory update, we have a few things that are happening. One, as I'm sure most of you are aware, method validation work had been completed and is available for ELAP accreditation as of a couple of months ago for saxitoxins, 1,H-benzotriazole, and trifluoroacetic acid. And then upcoming activities that may impact the laboratory community include we're planning to issue the PFAS initial monitoring order later this month, possibly next week. Comment period closes at noon today. With the saxitoxins method now validated, we're planning to move forward with proposing notification and response levels for each of the four for which we requested a recommendation from OEHA. Prior to that, though, we will conduct a cyanotoxins cost and capacity survey of I think just a handful of laboratories that are currently accredited for those. We'll be planning to conduct an organics analytes DLR cost capacity and capability survey sometime in December or January. Issue the revised manganese notification response levels probably early next year, and proceed with publishing the metal DLR's notice of proposed rulemaking in January or February. We did just complete a supplemental cost survey for the metal since this has been dragging on for a bit, just to update our costs. Appreciate the laboratories that responded to that, and we can now go ahead and move forward with that. And then after the lab survey for the cyanotoxins is done, we'll move forward with proposing the cyanotoxins notification response levels. We're trying to sequence these so that we're not drowning water systems and laboratories with a whole bunch of things all at the same time. So we're trying to let the PFAS monitoring order go out, do the cyanotoxin survey, sit tight over the holidays, and then start kind of sequencing these out so that it's not too confusing, because we do have quite a few actions coming forward the next several months. Then in spring or summer, we'll actually issue, after an informational item at a regularly scheduled board meeting, the cyanotoxins notification response levels. The goal is to have those out before algal blooms start picking up for the season. And then plan to issue a manganese monitoring order and or possibly other distribution system issues, as well as an NDMA, nitrosamines, and or other disinfection byproduct analytes monitoring order, possibly sometime around the summer. And then move forward with publishing the PFAS Stage 1 Notice of Proposed Rulemaking sometime next year. And then we had a question for laboratories for the surveys. Is there anything we can do to make the surveys easier to respond to? We did have one suggestion from a laboratory that it would be faster for them to fill out the form if we organized it by method then chemical instead of by chemical then method. So we'd appreciate any feedback from the laboratories about how we can make this easier for you to provide feedback to us. And that's it.
Thanks, Melissa. This is Augustine. I had a question about the cyanotoxin proposed rulemaking. So if you put out notification levels and all that, is there lab capacity for this? Does ELAP have labs that have submitted for saxitoxin and have their certificates?
I think we've only got about 5 or 6 laboratories right now. So that's something that would have to be looked at. We don't have a proposed monitoring order yet on the table for cyanotoxins right now. We want to get the notification response levels in place. We want to see what is the capacity because we expect there will be more interest in that once those are proposed and finalized.
Well, thank you.
Any other questions for Melissa?
Or suggestions about the lab surveys?
Yeah.
And I will
Yeah,
be
sorry.
getting those by email later if you need time to think about that.
Sorry, it's me again. Yeah, for the lab survey, I agree. I think if you're going to be doing methods with larger target lists, it might be easier to do method than analyte. I think a lot of labs will run the method together and be able to populate a table that way. So it might make it easier and quicker for people to submit those because it is
Okay.
daunting. If you have a huge survey that's, 30, 40, 50, 60 questions, people start and then they end up not finishing. So I think doing it that way might make it easier, especially for the big methods and
Okay.
organics, multiple analytes.
Right. So we've got volatiles coming up, and I know there are quite a few analytes on that list. So thank you. Yeah, if there are any other suggestions about what would make it faster, anybody who's on this listening to this and decided not to respond to a survey because it looked too time consuming, if you have any suggestions about where you got frustrated and where we can make adjustments, we'd really appreciate that to try to remove any barriers to response. All right. Well, otherwise, thank you. That's all I had.
Thanks, Melissa. The other entity that I know that has an update for us is Renita, who's going to provide an update.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. If for those who haven't met yet, my name is Renita, currently serve as a QA officer here at the Water Board. Just wanted to share a quick update on upcoming changes to the California Data Exchange Network, known as CDN. The State Water Resources Control Board anticipates transitioning part of CDN to a new cloud-based database platform this coming April or May. So this initial transition will only be applicable to chemistry and bacteria data. Other types of data like toxicity, habitat, or bioassessment data will be transitioning to the new platform over time. But for now, will be continued to be submitted to the old or current CDN environment. And then the new platform, it'll be called CDN 2.0. It was custom developed in partnership with a third-party vendor known as EarthSoft, and it includes a new redesigned user interface, and it's supposed to be more user-friendly and has a more user-friendly data submittal portal. The new platform will provide better detailed information on data completeness, data quality, and consistency with the new CDN 2.0 data formatting requirements. Additionally, there is a functionality where the relative percent difference and percent recovery results provided by data submitters will be verified by the system, such as large variances that are reported between reported and calculated values will result in an error, and they'll be flagged earlier on. This initial announcement is meant to be more of an introduction to this transition. The Office of Information Management and Analysis, known as OIMA, will be doing an extensive outreach campaign in partnership with ELAP. This will include workshops, trainings, and available resources that will be announced through emails and updated web pages. We highly encourage the laboratory community to look out for these future notifications and announcements on this topic, which we'll probably be providing more early next year. And if there are any questions or concerns that anyone may have, you're welcome to contact myself or Andrew Hamilton, who should be on the line if there are any other questions, and we'll be happy to discuss with you. And that is the initial update for the CDN 2.0 environment.
We'll leave it open for any questions or any comments. Hearing and seeing none. Mui, do you have any updates for us this month?
I can talk a bit about some of the bills, Senate legislative bills that were passed specific to our department, mostly relating to consumer products. I think one of it is AB 347, which restrict the use of PFAS in several types of products, including plant-based food packaging, textile articles for personal and household uses, and a wide variety of juvenile products. The next one is AB 2515, which bans PFAS in menstrual products. There is SB 1266, which bans bisphenols in a lot of the juvenile feeding, sucking, and teething products. And then we have SB 236, which restrict the use of many of the hair relaxer chemicals. So these are some of these bills that our department is looking into finding funding and such to implement. And in most of these, for these products and these chemicals in these products, we will look into developing our in-house methods for testing for them.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move over. I know Erica is out. She did not have any updates to pass along this month, but next ELTAC meeting, she might have a couple items to bring to the attention of the laboratory community. So with that, I'll move on to agenda item 3, which is our methylene chloride informational item. And Augustine is going to share presentation and some additional information that he can pass along.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. So my name's Augustine. I'm at WEC Labs, and I want to talk a little bit about the ban on methylene chloride that's coming up because it will affect laboratories, and it for sure will affect laboratories. It'll affect all of us, but also to get a little bit of input from ELAP and maybe get an idea of what labs are doing to mitigate these issues. I'll talk about what we're doing to mitigate these issues and see where maybe ELAP can help or labs can help. Yeah, there is a ban coming for methylene chloride. In 2016, the government made an update to the Toxic Substances Control Act and said that you have to evaluate risk based on the risk alone and not economic factors or anything else and some other things. And they determined that methylene chloride was the first one on the list to check. And they said of the 53 use cases they evaluated against, 52 of them were not appropriate, that this was it presented an unreasonable risk of cancer and issues to users for 52 of the 53 cases. So pretty much they're going to ban it. Problematic for us is that methylene chloride is a very, very useful solvent. For 50 years, we've been using it for everything, right? It's non-flammable. It's denser than water. It has a low boiling point. It really is very good at the kind of stuff that we do. But EPA said, the Office of Pollution Prevention said maybe not safe enough for people. Even with regular usage of PPE, still not going to be safe enough, what they determined. This is problematic because one side of the EPA, the Office of Pollution Prevention with the TSCA folks will say, this is not okay. You cannot use this. It's endangering your workers. It's very harmful. And then on the other side of the building, the people that run the regulatory programs, Clean Water Act, Safe Drinking Water Act, RECWA, and all those will say, you have to use this chemical. You don't have a choice. You have to use it. We wrote this method in 1979, and you must keep using it because we tell you it has to be done. So it presents an issue, right? It's two sides of the same agency saying different things. So it makes it pretty tough for labs like ours, or like all of the labs doing this kind of work. So because of this thing coming down, it was also surprising when we first got wind of it, the regulatory part of the EPA didn't really know that this was coming down. They got caught by surprise, just like the rest of us. So some of the industry groups, ASAL, namely, and Judy Morgan, one of our fellow ELTACers, was instrumental in this, pushed the agency to kind of give an exemption or an allowance for the environmental labs. When they first passed this law, they said that federal agencies, federal labs, state EPA, those people can have a little bit longer compliance window to meet the requirements, but everybody else was not going to get any exemptions. So anybody who was doing paint stripping or degreasing had to stop using this completely. And then labs that have proper engineering controls or potentially could have proper engineering controls had a little bit longer time to do this, provided they were federal labs or had federal contracts. So ASAL was able to lobby and get them to agree that all labs, so all academic and commercial laboratories and public agencies would have that same window that the federal labs would get. The issue is that, it's not a fix, it's just a pause on the implementation window. So we still have to comply with the requirement, and we can talk about it if there are questions later, but it's much stricter than it used to be. I think the 8-hour exposure limit was 12.5 ppm. Now the trigger level is 1 ppm and the threshold is 2 ppm. So it's quite a bit lower. It'd be tougher to implement. But now that we have this timeline in place, we have a way forward. And the process is going to be that, kind of starting now, you should be doing some internal monitoring, seeing what the exposure limits are, what people are actually being exposed to in your laboratory, and put in fixes to mitigate that. And then by next year, by 2027, the year after, we'll have to have compliance. So we'll have to do monitoring, get an industrial hygienist to monitor, to get data. And if you're under the trigger level, under the 1 ppm, then you're good. And then you do it every 5 years or something. But if you're over between 1 and 2, I guess you have to do it annually, which is or quarterly or something more strict. And if you're over 2, then it's not good. Then you get some fines probably, and it'll be not ideal. So pretty much we have like a year and change to fix this, or to at least comply with these requirements. So what we're doing, and what I think is the move in the laboratory side, is kind of these 3 things, right? And this is what we're doing in our lab. One is inventory everything that you use methylene chloride for. If it's, and I put it casual versus mandated, nobody uses methylene chloride casually, but if it's a non-required solvent, like a lot of methods don't specify, or some methods don't specify which extraction solvent to use. Methylene chloride is the best one, right? That's the best. It's slow boiling. It's dense. It's not, it's just a really good solvent for this. But if the method doesn't require it, go ahead and switch to ethyl acetate or something else. The problem with ethyl acetate or toluene or octane or hexane is that they are all lighter than water, so they don't sink to the bottom of the set funnel, and they're all flammable, which presents another challenge. So you have to have proper engineering controls to keep more quantities of flammable solvents. In our lab, we keep 200-liter drums of methylene chloride out because they're not, it's not flammable, so it's easy to store. But storing large quantities of flammable solvents becomes more challenging. And that brings up the engineering controls. We're in the process of building a new lab facility, and the new lab will contain all variable flow hoods. So old school hoods that a lot of labs have for use for a lot of years, that are constant volume hoods, are not so good at controlling the emission of methylene chloride. So using newer variable control or variable flow hoods that have controls with the HVAC system that can do proper balancing are much better at mitigating exposure in the laboratory, provided that you're doing this stuff in a hood, and it should all be done in a hood. So if you can, I would recommend doing it, but it's also very expensive. We're spending several $100,000 on valves for the fume hoods, which is I don't like doing. It sucks, but this is the kind of the cost of keeping it under these limits and keeping it safe for the staff. So that's one thing that you could do. And the other thing is to try to validate other approaches. And that's something that we're also looking at, right? We're looking at trying to go to SPE for methods that allow it. So some methods do permit SPE, which uses way less solvent, right? 625.1 liquid liter extraction, we're looking at, 400 milliliters of methylene chloride that gets evaporated. We capture some escapes into the atmosphere, so not ideal. But if you can go to SPE, then you're talking about maybe 10 mils of methylene chloride, which is a little bit more palatable. We're also looking at miniaturizing some extraction processes, right? Liquid extraction is the best extraction approach, like in the case of 625.1. SP is not great for these targets, right? Some targets have very low recoveries, but since the method was written in the 70s, low recoveries are kind of okay, I guess. 0.1% or detection, I guess, is what the EPA says that it's good enough. So for us, that's not so good. We'd like to have better recoveries. So going SP is not a really great option, but miniaturizing the liquid extraction, if possible, is an option. That's what we're pursuing. And going to smaller scales is better because you use less solvent, but you have to have better instruments. So then you have to upgrade your mass spectrometers and get more sensitive equipment. So there is always a cost for these things. But those are kind of the steps that we're doing in our lab to mitigate this. Fortunately, we're never going to get rid of methylene chloride. As by our best efforts, it is really a good solvent. But what we're going to try to do is minimize the usage and adapt things where we can. The other thing that is maybe less obvious is that with the sudden ban, pretty much overnight shutdown of all usage of methylene chloride, it's going to get more expensive, right? It's going to be less of it around. So buying it is going to be really expensive and disposing of it is going to be really expensive. No one's going to want to take it anymore. So then the disposal costs will go up. So it really is economically advantageous at this point to try to reduce the usage of methylene chloride because it will end up getting to be pretty expensive for laboratories, especially small municipal labs that operate on a fixed budget. It's going to be challenging. So we'd be best served to kind of get that sorted out now. So what we like from the regulators, and I think ELAP is going to be tied up a little bit with this with the EPA, but what we're trying to do is get the EPA to make changes to these methods, right? Nobody likes changing things, especially not the federal government. It's hard, it's slow, it's difficult, supposedly, and but we'll still need them to do that. So a lot of these methods that absolutely require methylene chloride, we'd want to get that stuff fast-tracked to not require it. And I think that could be something that the labs can take the burden, right? We can validate alternate procedures, alternate solvents, but if the EPA doesn't actually allow that per the method, not much we can do. We can do all the cool stuff we want in the lab, but without EPA's support, not much would happen because these are for compliance kind of measurements. And the other thing that it would be nice is if the EPA does lower that barrier of modifications, say, hey, to accommodate this requirement, you can make changes that are not explicitly permitted, blah, blah, blah. Maybe we have some language. The next step is we need ELAP to jump on that. Sooner rather than later. I don't know if we can do a 2-3 year adoption cycle on something like this where in 18 months we're not going to be able to use methylene chloride anymore. So it'd be both both sides. If the EPA can let us make these changes or allow the changes to be made, the labs can validate it. It'd be on ELAP and the accrediting bodies to let us do it, kind of in the same fast track fashion. And then one thing I also want to measure, we'll get off my soapbox after this, is, we're environmental labs. We should be good to the environment. Methylene chloride is a good solvent to use because it's useful. It's industrial relevant. It is really a good solvent, but it's not great for the environment, right? It's probably not good for people. It's not good for wildlife. So really, we should take this as not it is a burden and it sucks and it's tedious and difficult. But it should be a push to make the lab industry greener, right? We should look at greener solvents, different techniques, and just generally try to be better about the kind of chemicals we use, and just leave the world a better place, right? If we're in this business anyway, we might as well try to do our part. So trying to look at different volumes, lower solvent usage in general, different solvents, greener solvents that come from, biofeedstocks would be great too if we can make those allowances. But it's all a little bit, incremental steps to make things better. So I want to open up to the other ELTAC members, see what people are doing in their labs to mitigate this, see if there's something that we can share or if there's a push we can have for ELAP to do something. We can also ask since they're all here.
Actually, thank you for the presentation. I think it was great. I wanted to just add to that. Actually, I was rereading the regulation this morning. And a lot of that comes with a lot of other formalities we all have to do with the safety manual or the industrial hygiene plan. So that's really important too, right? Building that into your system. Luckily for us, we're able to do water, soil, and air. So if you have that luxury, doing some kind of air testing in your lab would be good, so you can at least see what that levels look like. Moving to, dosimeter type badges too, that's an option. We do that for our material science department. So there's a couple options of, the wall monitors too is another option. So just different things that the labs can look at, but all the labs and municipalities should definitely go and at least read the regulation. The labs are required to comply with two tables. I think it's table 4 and table 8. 8 is really an appendix. But 4 gives you all the meat of what we're supposed to comply to and how to comply. So it's really good information for everyone to look at. So I don't know if we can provide the link later, Chris, maybe?
Yeah, that would be. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Yes. If you want to pass that to me,
Okay.
we can have it and post it directly on our page.
It's
too.
not a huge document to read, but it is really useful. Again, I reread it this morning and learned a few things again. And I was like, oh, I have to do that too. So I just thought I'd bring that up so everybody was aware also. Thank you, Og.
And if helpful, we can also put together a cheat sheet. So because it's dense, the regulations are dense. So we could put together a cheat sheet for ELAB to post to help laboratories if that's.
Yeah, I'm all for that. So one of the things that is added in the bylaws, which we're going to talk about later, but advance notice here, there's two options for LTAC to like work on things, because working as a full committee is a little tedious and a little difficult to corral everybody to provide input. So one of the items is a work group where you're taking items, they're designed to be worked on a specific thing, and then you bring it back to the LTAC membership as a whole to vote on as a specific recommendation. The other one would be a subcommittee, where you'd have regular meetings where members of the public can join and provide comments. And that's more for like long-term projects of like, these are the things that we want to do and we need to do these in this order. And then you can invite other people who aren't necessarily an LTAC member into those committees as well. So if you wanted to make a work group, if you wanted to make a subcommittee, either one of those.
Yeah, I would just do a work group. I think for this, it'd be summarizing the regulations, work group, couple people, get it out. Should be fine. Do we have to vote on work groups or can we just?
Well, now they're in the bylaws, so we can vote for them.
Okay.
And they're specific in the bylaws that it's not subject to Bagley-Keene. It's intended to be a thing that you do and then take back to LTAC.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I think a work group would be good as well.
I think Rachel had her hand up.
Yeah, Rachel's got her hand up, so we'll let her chime in too. And then I'm hearing actions, possibly vote.
Thanks, Augustine. Our lab as well, from Babcock Laboratories, we're looking at several different combination of options, including improving our hoods and also looking at micro extractions, very similar in SPEs. So I think that's probably going to be a pretty common approach. But I think the thing that we probably need to push for the most from the EPA is loosening or creating new guidelines around being able to validate new methods. I have some history in the pharmaceutical world, and despite being at times more regulated, there is more freedom there, provided that you meet the criteria. And I think just being able to move to that kind of model where there is a strict validation procedure, but as long as you meet those procedures and those requirements, there's more freedom amongst the laboratories to make modifications to these methods, as long as you can prove that they're equivalent. Because I fear that if we wait for the EPA to accept one change and then say, okay, now everyone has to do it this way, I think we've moved beyond that. In the 60s and 70s, it made sense to have to do everything exactly the same way. I think now with better ways of measuring, better instrumentation, and more understanding, there are more than one way to have an equivalent method. So I think that really that's where we should be moving to it as well, while we continue to make these changes within what we can, because I don't think methylene chloride is going to be the last solvent to be banned.
Yeah, and it's a good point. Thanks for those comments. It's for sure. This is the first one, and there are going to be more, and that list is big, and they're going to make their way through it. So maybe we can also ask ELAB to push EPA. I don't know if you guys have a voice with EPA to say, hey, our labs need this.
We have a little bit for drinking water, we're stuck in the same position that all the laboratories are, where the method says you use methylene chloride. So that's what the assessors have to view, because the way that it works for drinking water, those are incorporated by reference. So the whole method is the procedure to determine the drinking water amount. There's a bunch of methods in there that we also wish they would update because it would make our lives a little bit easier. But in that end, we can push a little bit, especially if we have like a letter or something from the ELTAC community to push forward as well. We can help in that regard. But in some areas, we're not going to make any progress. EPA is going to do whatever EPA does, and we'll find out eventually. So.
Yeah, and just like the rest of us, I guess. That makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah. So yeah, I'll move then to vote on a work group to, I guess, make a cheat sheet for the regulations. And then also we could put together a letter that would maybe ELAB can pass along to EPA and say, hey, our lab community needs this. And it'd be pretty much what Rachel mentioned. We don't want this specific method updated. It would be, we want an allowance for all methods to have that flexibility built in, which would go a long way to helping this. And I think improving data quality, there seems to be some resistance in these legacy methods where, well, the data quality was bad before, so we have to keep bad data quality, which I understand from perspective of keeping data the same, but not from having good data. So it'd be nice if we can make things just better.
Okay, Augustine has called for a work group. Do we have a second?
This is Teresa. I second that.
All right, so Jen, for the LTAC reps, if you could go down for a roll call vote, whether aye, nay, or abstain.
Wait, Peter Arth,
Aye.
Samuel Choi,
Aye.
Augustine Pieri,
Aye.
Paul Monroy for Sashmitha.
Aye.
Judy is absent. Saguna Pillay. She's been having issues with her sound this morning.
I see a thumbs up, so I'll count that as an
Okay.
aye. Unfortunately, the mic's not working still, so that's okay.
Thank you, Chris. Teresa Johnson,
Aye.
James Forrest. Kelvin.
Aye.
Sherry? Kelvin. Oh, what do you
Aye.
have? Okay, there you are. And Rachel Cahill.
Aye.
Great.
The motion passes, so LTAC needs
Unanimously.
to create a work group. The restrictions on this are less than a quorum of members, of LTAC members. There's no prohibition on other interested persons joining or providing guidance, but it'll be coordinated by you all, and then you'll bring it back to the next LTAC meeting, preferably in writing, so I can post it online for everyone else to see before the meeting starts. So for that, who would like to be on the work group?
This is Teresa. I would.
Yeah, me too.
This is Rachel. I would.
This is Kelvin.
And sure.
I'm going.
So the quorum is 1/2 plus 1. So you can have 5.
Oh, we can have 5.
Yes.
Okay.
And I want to make sure I got the folks who are on there because I only have 4, so I'm missing
I think-
somebody.
As I think,
Kelvin?
Kelvin, did you say you wanted to be involved? I
that
think we
Kelvin?
might have missed
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, I will join.
Okay, that was, so I have Augustine, Teresa, James, Kelvin, and Rachel. Okay. So you all are going to create a cheat sheet for the regs, and then a letter to the EPA. And then LTAC is going to vote on those next meeting to say it's all good or go back and make changes.
That works.
Sound good?
I'll send you guys an email and we'll make it happen.
All right, cool. All right, I'll leave it open for any more comments or, oh, Rachel's bouncing in and out. Any more comments or any more questions, or I don't think we have any public comments on this item. Okay. All right, seeing and hearing none, we can move on to agenda item number 4, which is a update specific for the drinking water fields of accreditation. Mariella is on the line, the Division of Drinking Water, and it will also be me aiding in this presentation. So, Mariella, if you could share your presentation. If not, let me know and I can share it too. Perfect.
Can you listen to me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Well, let's see. You can hear me, and let's see. Can you see me? Okay. Well, good morning, ELTAC members and honored guests. I appreciate the opportunity to present the evaluation of drinking water analytical methods and the potential ELAB field of accreditation updates. This evaluation was a team effort between Chris Hen from ELAB and myself from the Division of Drinking Water Quality Assurance Section. These efforts ensures that drinking water analysis use the most reliable, sensitive, and health protective analytical methods. The goal of this presentation is to share the evaluation we perform on the drinking water analytical methods, taking in consideration the new U.S. EPA alternate test procedures and remove unused methods, that kind of method that are obsolete. Consequently, we will add new methods and remove others from the ELAB field of accreditation for drinking water. Adding new methodology enhance public health protection by allowing detection of contaminants that lower concentration, often below existing regulatory thresholds. And these update methods increase accuracy and sensitivity, helping identify potential health risk at early stage. They also ensure alignment with federal regulations and provide laboratories with flexible, cost-effective tools to generate reliable, defensible, and data for drinking water compliance. Innovate and continuous improvement will keep California drinking water program at the forefront of public health protection. By removing outdated drinking water methods from the FOA, it's necessary to ensure that laboratories use only the most sensitive and reliable techniques available. You know, Agustin just mentioned that some of the organics methods has been dated since the 70s with big volumes of methyl chloride. But, well, let's see if with new methodologies we can reduce that volume and also be current with the health base of regulatory requirements. Updating the FOA fortifies data quality, aligns with federal standards, and provides great public health protection. For evaluation, we review the federal approved methods, 40 CFR 141 Appendix A, and select the newest method version and check method and analyte names. In addition, we also review the CLIP method analyte pair names and the drinking water regulatory unit also assist us on the Federal Register updates. Now we are requesting an external review by the laboratory community to know your thoughts and potential implications that these changes may have in their implementation process. The next two tables are, we summarize the number of methods in analyte pairs. And as you can see, the highest is on the inorganics, and that will be mainly having changes on the FOA tables, 102 and 110. And then the next one is the organics. Regarding the removal of method of analyte pairs, we will remove 79 radiological methods from the accreditation list. These methods are either no longer in use or have not been requested for accreditation for several years. And we also evaluate 65F08, but we are not going to add it because the technology is not used anymore, or the methodology is out of date, or we don't have laboratories accredited on that methods, or very simple, doesn't met the DLRs for regulatory purposes on drinking water. Then our next step, as I mentioned at the beginning, is to review in comments from the ELTAC community. Chris and I, we are going to share our Excel spreadsheet and let you know exactly what is the method that is going to be removed or the analyte that is going to be added. And we would like to know the time for laboratories to move forward to update methods. And also, when you have a new method, we are aware that you need to have some time to validate the new instrumentation and new methods in the laboratory. With this, I think that I'm open to discuss this potential ELAB field of accreditation updates.
Thanks, Mariela. And I want to add here too that the items we're removing are really methods that nobody is using. So if you're worried that we're going to take away something that your laboratory relies on, that's really not the case here. Like Mariela said, there were 76 specific FOAs in radiochemistry. Nobody uses any of them. We're cutting that table down from, I think it's 90 FOAs to a few dozen. And part of that is to help our program. You know, we need staff that are trained and knowledgeable in all the laboratory methods. And if we're hanging on to these ones that nobody's using and we're keeping, we don't really want to have those on our list as well. So there are a lot of the new methods for organics. A lot of those are using green chemistry. There's one that uses for nitrate that uses the enzyme rather than the cadmium cell. So things like that, where we've looked at what the EPA allows the state to offer and where it meets the data quality needs of California. Those ones we're going to be adding. The other big update is we're including ASTM methods where they're approved in drinking water, which we already do in wastewater. And we're moving everything to the 24th edition with an exception because EPA's drinking water is very particular on some of the methods for all of the drinking water analysis. So that's really the discussion point that we want to have here now without you guys seeing all of the changes and everything like that. We want to know how long of a time drinking water should expect to build into the process so that way they can have a date where everybody's using the new methods. And leave it open for discussion. Go ahead.
Thanks for the presentation. I think it's great that RadChem list was out of control. Is so many methods that half of them I've never heard of. So I think it's good to clean it up. I appreciate, of course, adding new methods. I think the lab community will appreciate that. For labs that are accredited in multiple states, it is cumbersome to have the 19th edition of standard methods and then the 22nd, but then the 24th. It's cumbersome. So having it harmonized would be great. When you share your list, if you could also share the ones that were not included, the ones that you evaluated not included.
Yes.
Yeah, because
We have that is included as part of the list too, there's a large list. I'm sure there might be a couple methods that the EPA has approved in a weird footnote that we all missed, but we've gone through a lot of material. It's been, like Mariela said, it's been a team effort. There's been numerous DDW staff that have gone through and really aided us in making sure that we're catching everything. But yes, there's a list of analytes looked at, but not included in the list too.
cool. Yeah, I appreciate that. And to the question of how long it'll take, short answer, in the lab, not that long, right? If it's existing technology, like if it's existing instrumentation, it's pretty quick. I mean, I know people balk at doing a new MDL study. It's 3 days. It's not hard. I mean, it's, you're doing a dozen injections over 3 days. It's not a huge deal. The issue we see though is we'll do the MDL, we'll get a PT, we'll write the SOP, and then we have to wait for an on-site assessment. That is where the difficulty is. And I don't know about other labs, but for our lab, we're not going to schedule an on-site assessment that is very expensive. You have to fly an auditor out just to update the standard methods version from 22 to 24. If there could be a system or framework within ELAB to, say, hey, look, you've already been accredited for the same technology or similar technology. It's the same approach using, say, it's going from liquid extraction to SPE, and you have other methods that are SPE or using GCFID to mass spec, and you have other GCMS methods. If there's a way to say, hey, look, this is an interim even certificate until you get your next on-site assessment to include everything, it would be very helpful. And I think it would be quicker for the lab community to get those things onto their certificates and ready to run. Because right now the burden, at least for our lab, the burden is waiting for on-site assessment. And we're pretty choosy about when we schedule those because it's disruptive and it's expensive. It would help for sure to have those kinds of allowances.
I think it would also encourage the labs to add to that, to actually move faster with the validation process, because like you said, you're waiting for an assessment and that could be generally 6 months out, and now your validation is 6 months old.
Yeah.
And are you really trying to keep up with MDLs? Yeah, maybe you have production samples that are not certified, but do you really want to be hoping that that instrument still works? So for us, we kind of struggle with the same thing. So if we know that there's some kind of waiver, some kind of interim, that would be super helpful as well for us.
I agree. And I think the other thing is it also encourages laboratories to take on new methods. I think right now this is sort of a boundary to that. And it means that there are underserved areas and underserved clients out there because there's less opportunities, just simply because if you want to bring something online, it takes you 6 months to a year. So if we could move to a audit practice, which audits your ability to a risk-based practice that audits your ability to do a certain technique, that should cover it. If you successfully do LCMS MS for one method and all the other things are the same, except for some small method differences and an analyte, it shouldn't make a difference. So I think it would go a long way to both supporting the industry and, more importantly, supporting the people the industry serves.
Then from a procedural point, because there, as you are aware, there is another method update rule that wastewater is doing. Hopefully we can time these so that all of it changes all at once, and then there's a little bit more consistency across the board where you don't have to have one method for one thing and the other method for the other thing. The last method update rule that we did, where we had an on-site assessment waiver if you were updating a standard method, but the waiver was rejected if you were trying to add a method that you hadn't used before. So even if it was like the ASTM that used the same instrumentation, we said, no, do an assessment because that was easier for our end. Is that something that you all would like to see again? And if so, would you be open to doing that for both at the same time?
I think so, but at the same time, to Augustine's point and Rachel's point, going to that technology base and that risk approach, adding that to the waiver, I think would be monumental and huge for us as the laboratories. Because that waiver was very helpful. I know for us, we moved a lot of the nitrate methods, and I think it was microbiology and a lot of that aspect, BOD, things like that. You're just moving from one standard method to another. It's the same technology, but again, if you're doing GCMS and you're just moving it from one area to another, why can't you proceed with that?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the waiver is huge, it's very helpful, but like in going ASTM standard methods, if it's the same technology, same approach, same everything, I feel like the waiver should apply because it would be helpful to the labs. And yeah, and to Rachel's point, I think that would encourage people to adopt these new methods sooner, right? There's going to be a lot of inertia keeping things the same if it's hard. I mean, I think what we talked about with Melissa, like the surveys are hard, so people don't like doing them because it's like, I could just not do it and continue operating. So I think lifting the barriers, or at least reducing the barriers, would get more adoption and quicker turnaround on these things.
Oh, there we go. Any other comments from the ELTAC community members? Yeah, I mean, I will point out that we are bound from some things by the EPA, especially for drinking water. So in some regards, we're going to be as flexible as we can, but we may not be as flexible as we'd like to be. So for that and what we really need help with the community, there's when we're posting the whole list of all of the things, we want timeline for implementation. So we're hearing that it's at least 6 months because if there's an on-site assessment, you'd want more time for doing all that. And then anything that you identify as an issue. What's not going to be the most helpful comment is like, I don't want to do 24th edition of standard methods. Like that's not really going to be a helpful comment. We'll take it, but the ability for us to change that is going to be very, very small. So if you can formulate kind of comments of like, oh, hey, this is not quite right, or this one, you should be able to use this one with this method or things like that. That would be ideal too. And Marielle and I, please, are going to be the points of contact. So you'll at least be able to directly email somebody rather than a faceless inbox. So.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I only want to also share that for California specific analytes, probably we can have a little more flexibility, okay? Because it's the California Safety Drinking Water Act. But if it's the federal, as Chris already mentioned, we have some limitations about that.
Great. Well, we appreciate that. Be on the lookout. It'll be posted and we'll have an announcement that goes along with it and all that kind of stuff. So thank you very much. Be on the lookout for that. And if I'll look back. No, okay. No comments from the public, but if you have a comment or if you want to hop into the Zoom call for those who are watching on webcast, emailing elap_comments@waterboards.ca.gov.
Just ELAPCA_comments for the CA.
ELAPCA_comments, excuse me. I have a link and it'll show up on lunch. So if you want to hop in at lunchtime, we can do that too. All right. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Mike, who is our Program Development, Research, and Enforcement Unit Supervisor for a update for ELAP's planning and 2026 goals.
All right, thanks, Chris. Can I get a thumbs up for the people remotely that they can hear me? Good. All right. Thank you. All right. Share. Okay. Like that? Good. All right. Perfect. All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Head. I'm the supervisor of the Program Development, Research, and Enforcement Unit at ELAB. It's nice to see you all here in person and those of you also online too. All right. So today I'm going to talk about the 2026 goals at ELAB. I'll jump right in. Should be pretty brief. All right. Need to move this out of my way on the screen. Okay. All right. So I want to talk about the focus areas in 2026. So we are going to be, continuing to do continuous improvement within the program for and reinforcing our core program functions of inspecting, accrediting, monitoring, and enforcing. We are have been in the process of developing our quality management system. We're continuing with that, and that's going really well. Our new quality assurance officer has been very busy. And one of the other areas is enhancing communication. That includes these ELTAC meetings and hosting ELAPCon. We're going to continue to do that in 2026 as well. I'm sure that the last topic will be one of the things we talk about a lot at the next ELAPCon, which is one of the big focus area for us as we're beginning the process to become a TNI accreditation body. All right, so I want to talk briefly about why TNI matters, and this is going to, most of you know all this already, I'm sure, but why we wanted to come back to TNI is to have some consistency and credibility on the national stage for our program. There's going to be some cost savings for California labs, especially for those California labs that are already implementing TNI. And it really reinforces our leadership position on that national stage. All right, so here's the path to becoming TN accredited. Why are we doing this? Besides what we just talked about with the cost savings and the visibility nationally, in 2015 we got an expert review panel report, and one of the charge questions was should California ELAP come back to TNI, and it was a resounding yes, and we have been in that time frame been making changes to do that, and we think that we're ready to do that now. So in order to do that, we need to comply with the whole standard, the whole TNI AB standard. A lot of that was really shoring up quality management system within the program. So we've made a lot of really good progress on that. So to be a TNI AB, we have to offer full TNI accreditation within California. And so the solution that we have landed on is implementing a voluntary certificate program for labs. And this would be in addition to our current TNI -2 offering. So the timeline, we are going to begin that process next year. So a really important part of that process is gathering the feedback from ELTAC and the rest of the regulated lab community about what you all want and need, and a big part of that is communicating with the community. And so we are committed to sharing updates, using your feedback to guide the process, and we will share the details of timelines as we go through it. So again, the overall goal is to strengthen ELAP service that we provide for California labs. And that stay tuned, more to come. That's it.
All right, with that, we'll open it up for any comments or questions.
I always hate to be the guy that talks first, but no, I mean, we're excited. We're a TNI laboratory, and I think having this happen in California is exciting, right? I, as a also proud Californian, I also want, California to be the best. So yeah, it'd be good. We're looking forward to it. I think it would end up helping our lab to consolidate, our accreditations and our on-site assessments. Like I mentioned earlier, scheduling the on-site assessments is cumbersome and expensive. So I think harmonizing that to have fewer of them, or at least streamlining that process, is helpful. We're looking forward to that for sure.
Yeah, I completely agree. I only have one question, Mike, on the PT side, of course. So we hold TNI in another state as well. So for us, if we're going full TNI, then that's double PTs and mainly all the drinking waters for California. So is that something that we're still going to maintain? What does that look like for the labs that you guys are thinking about?
Yeah, the double PTs is a requirement for full TNI. So yeah, that would be one of the things.
Yeah, I'll add too that it's the plan right now is optional. So if you
Yeah,
want to be
voluntary.
TNI accredited, you would do the 2 PTs per year as the full standard requires. We're not intending to make everybody full TNI. Everyone will be TNI minus 2. Any other questions, comments from members online?
I got a question. This is great news. I know the schedule's still developing, but when do you anticipate that you'll be ready to go full TNI?
Yeah. So we're expecting to be fully TNI accredited at the beginning of 2027. I believe that that's correct, Christine. Yeah.
Great,
Peter.
thank you.
Peter.
So I may be a little early on this. I know there's a lot of details to come, but I mean, have you guys done sort of a preliminary thought process on, what fees are going to look like when you're going to have a bifurcated fee system based on lab size or labs that are accredited, in the state or out of the state?
Yeah, so yes, Peter, that's been a big consideration that we've been discussing that, but we have not. There will be a separate fee stakeholder meetings for that specific issue.
Okay. And then my other one that just comes to top of mind is, similar to probably most of the labs on this call, we're TNI and we're getting it from a different state right now. Is the intent of ELAP to insist that if you are in the state of California and operating in the state of California and you're a TNI, that you get it from ELAP, or are you guys still going to be okay with labs getting accreditation from outside TNI bodies?
The intention is, yes, that it would be through California, and the cost would be lower.
Okay. Okay. I mean, it's going to come up in the fees discussion probably of, so you guys are going to do market price surveys and change them every year if needed. Okay.
And to piggyback on Peter's point, I think the cost will be important. I know that there'll be stakeholder meetings for the fees and everything, but it's to have, I think, broad adoption, it'll have to be price competitive. Like it would have to be significantly, quote unquote, worth it. I guess to do that. And obviously, I'm happy to. I'm excited. I think it'd be better overall. But if it's going to be more expensive than going to different AB, then it would be a tough pill to swallow for the lab community, especially the commercial labs that it's a very competitive environment that we all are looking at the cost of everything, and the cost of everything goes up. So if we can get some help from ELAP in the accreditation side, would be awesome.
Yeah, and as I said before, the stakeholder feedback process is going to be key to rolling this out.
And I think, to add one more point onto that, and being one of the specialty labs, amongst the group, I think it also has to be factored in whether ELAP intends to use their own assessors for this, or you're going to have to use a TPA if those assessments aren't available directly through ELAP, because that can make it a little more difficult on the cost control side if you're forcing people to go through California, but you also have to use a TPA because you don't necessarily have control over those fees and those costs.
Yeah, understood. There are a lot of variables, right? And so that'll be part of the discussion for sure.
All right, very good.
Sorry, and I guess to go again, piggyback off Peter's, is the idea to do, like, for the labs that already have to do a third-party assessor, that it's like Peter's lab specialty or a big scope, is the idea to just do everything third-party for those labs, or would it be the stuff that ELAP can do, ELAP would do, and then everything else is third-party?
Yeah, again, I think that's one of the details
Okay.
we'll have to iron out as we go through.
I think, yeah, if I could provide some input now,
Please do.
that would suck. So if we can just do it in one shot, it would for sure be the preferred way to do it.
Right, understood.
Thanks.
All right, and then still good. Okay, well, thank you very much, Mike. Thanks everyone for a
Everybody.
great discussion, and look forward to hearing more about the plans as we move forward. Like Mike said, the fee stakeholder thing is going to be a separate process, typical fees. Not my favorite part, but with that, we can move on to our next agenda item, which is going to be an open discussion and one where we want to get some more action and consensus on what direction to move, and that's for artificial intelligence uses in laboratories. So Augustine's going to tee it up, and then we're going to open it up for ELTAC members to discuss and move through and decide on what's the course of action to go.
Cool. So, sorry for everybody, but I have a thing of an addiction to making PowerPoints. I don't like it. I'm like bad at it. It takes longer than I care to admit to make them, but I do have a PowerPoint for this. So I'll try to be brief and then open up to discussion. That's what we kind of want to get things going to see what people think and what people want. Get this guy out of here. Okay, so again, this is Augustine. I'm going to talk a little bit about AI, how we use AI in the lab, and then I want to get feedback on how people are using it in the community, and also kind of, I guess we'll put together maybe another work group or something to put some guardrails on how we think labs should use it. And I think it's important to jump ahead on this and have ELAB put out some guidance on like do's and don'ts, best practices, that kind of stuff, because as everybody knows, AI is getting more and more pervasive in everything we do. Like my phone has AI, my smartwatch has AI, everything has AI built in now, which is it's good and bad. It's great for making memes of funny videos, but maybe not good in the lab environment. So I'll talk a little bit about what it is and what it isn't. Right, AI is good at recognizing patterns. It's good at evaluating large sets of data within confined constraints. It's good at working through a process if you can kind of define it. It's pretty much these models are just predictors. They don't know anything. They're actually dumb, right? They're not magic. They're not sentient. They're not really knowing anything, but they're good at predicting. So if you present a string of characters or string of words, it'll be pretty good at predicting what the next word is probably going to be. And that's how those AI models will say, "Hey, let me write this email for you." That's how they work. It's just predicting the next word. So it's not really something smart. Like they don't inherently know anything, and it's really not good at being correct, right? It's all being fed, especially large language models today are being fed by the internet. They're trained by the internet. And, as people say, everything on the internet is true, said Abraham Lincoln. But, it's all a lot of bad data out there. So it's susceptible to hallucinations and it's not infallible. So some of the things that we've looked at AI for or we're using already in our lab is for data analysis, right? If you have boatloads of data, it's really good at detecting trends. So if you have, say, the same sample every single week at a certain level for all these targets, an AI model could be really good at saying, hey, this is creeping up. Like you can set a threshold of, if it clips this number, it's over and, triggers a flag. But it'd also be helpful to say, hey, this is trending up. It's up 15%, week over week. And that maybe a user wouldn't notice. So it's good for that kind of stuff. And other people out there that are doing AI-based method development where you give it the chemical properties of your analytes and it'll predict a gradient and, whatever the HPLC conditions would be for this. There's also some vendors that are putting out AI-based preventative maintenance, which is something that we really want to have that will tell you, hey, your instrument filament is going to burn out on Friday afternoon after you start 3 batches over the weekend. Because in the old days, you start those batches, filament burns out, you get in on Monday, and nothing ran. So being able to predict that is really helpful. And the other thing is evaluating data kind of in a holistic approach of these are the flag levels you set up, and these are the things that fail. So, light usage of data review, but just in terms of identifying what to look at and what to bring forward, I guess. So a little more visible example is integrations, right? Something that I think we could all benefit from. The integrators on instruments are not, there's some is good, mostly good, but when we get into complex matrices, things like diesel and water, or PFAS is an example of some chronic and PFAS. You have some branch isomers, linear isomers, and using the built-in integrators are not always the best. And then manual integrations, where that's kind of accepted, is also not ideal because you end up getting fatigue, right? If you're doing this and looking at peaks all day, every day, you come in the morning, you have 6 or 7 cups of coffee, and you're on it, right? Every integration is perfect. By the end of the day, you're going to struggle. The integrations are a little sloppier. They're not consistent, not the same as they were in the morning. So you have that variability. So doing this with an AI model that you can train and say, hey, I'm showing the model how I integrate these peaks, and it can learn from your integrations, will make it always consistent and always the same. And it would be akin to having an automatic integrator. You don't have to flag that. You shouldn't have to flag this as being manually integrated or AI integrated. It would just be the integrator in the system. So I think that's a really practical use for a lot of labs, especially like ours, where we deal with a lot of peaks every day. Another thing that's very cool is automating the lab, right? We're big into automation in our lab, especially with the methylene chloride reduction, right? Automation is going to be really important because your exposure limits are for your people. The robots don't care if they're exposed to methylene chloride. So if you have an enclosed space and the robot's getting blasted with methylene chloride, not a big deal. They don't have a union and they won't complain. So we use things like computer vision to make sure that the sample is being processed correctly, that the pipetting is correct, that the consumables are enough, or that we have enough stock to do whatever process we're going to do, and have that stuff be kind of an assist to the chemist and not really replacing the chemist, but doing a lot of the tedious things that a chemist doesn't have to do, and they could focus on other smart, evaluating data kind of things. And then the things that I think are more important is where you shouldn't use AI, right? All the cool, useful, helpful use cases for AI is great, but I think that for me, just coming up with these, there are 3 things that absolutely should not be used when you're talking about AI, and one is data validation. I know that some folks have talked about it, especially these upstart or startup companies that are trying to put AI in everything, about talking about evaluating data using artificial intelligence. They say, oh, you can just put in your raw data here and we'll look at all of it and make sure it's cool. I would not trust that for a second. No way. And I think we should, ELAB should put out guidance saying this is not an acceptable use of AI. That needs to be done by a person who actually reviews every single chromatogram, every single data point, and approves it or rejects it for use. So we can't trust a black box that has no audit trail, no traceability, no anything. So that's something that it's a little bit critical. And for us, I mean, me in general, I'm very privacy oriented. So I don't like the idea of putting my customer data up in some public cloud that I don't know what happens to it. Like I don't want to use my customers' data to train models for other stuff. And I'm sure my customers wouldn't want that either. So I think there have to be some safeguards in place to prevent that kind of stuff from getting out. Like that should be protected data, even though it's probably anonymized and it's likely not possible to get out. But just in case. And then the thing I mentioned earlier is traceability and auditability. You really can't audit these models. And what's interesting is this is a cool thing and a not cool thing. It's cool. They're always learning. They're training themselves. So the model is always getting quote unquote smarter, but that means that your output could change, right? If you run some process today on some model that's being continually trained, in 2 or 3 weeks, it's going to be different. So there's no way to get consistent results on something like data review and those kind of things where you want to have that traceability. So it really is something that we should be, as an industry, be careful that you just can't audit this. So it's important to kind of put guardrails on that stuff. So yeah, to put it all at fine point is the ChatGPT is not a chemist, right? They don't know anything. They're generally pretty dumb. These models don't actually know anything. They're prone to hallucinations, trained on bad data, and there's no way to audit these things. There's no way to open up the hood and see how it came to a decision or how it processed a sequence of data or whatever to come up with the final decision. And if you can't audit that, it should not be approved or used in, kind of compliance type work. And really, in our labs, you shouldn't use it at all because it's hard to separate, as we talked about last time, compliant samples from non-compliant samples. So I think that it's important to put those guardrails in place. So I kind of wanted to, I guess one thing I was going to come up, because always people are worried, I think in our lab, people are worried that we're going to replace chemists with robots that have AI. And that's not true. I think that the future is always to have a person in there. So what we want to use the AI tools is to help people do their job and make it easier for them to do their job. Now, the chemists and the analysts and the people in the labs always will be responsible for evaluating the data and doing the things that a person needs to do. But if we can give them a lift of, not having to pipette a million bajillion things all day, every day, and have them just look at data, it makes for a more pleasant work environment, and they can focus a little bit more on the stuff that needs a person. So I think the winning solution is the analyst plus an AI model, and it's better than the analyst alone or the AI alone. So I want to open up to folks, see how you guys are using artificial intelligence, how you think you shouldn't use it, like where you would put guardrails, and just see what the community says.
Hi, James. I've had lots of folks come in and try to sell various forms of AI, and for me, the key is legal defensibility. Bottom line is, can you defend this? And you want to translate meeting minutes or something like that, or summarize. That's great. And like the point you brought up about having something do the pipetting while a person is reviewing the data, that's all fantastic. But anything that's going to, potentially result, in a legal situation, is kind of right now where I'm drawing the line. Maybe this stuff will get better and, whatnot, but that's my line to be drawn right now is, can it be defended?
No, that makes sense. I think that traceability and defensibility is critical. And if we can't, I think we should not permit it.
Hi, Rachel. I agree. I also, in our laboratory, we use AI for administrative tasks, things that take up time, but don't necessarily, I hate to say use the word, but dumb tasks, tasks that don't require that scientific thinking in order to allow our analysts and our chemists to spend more time on the science. Also, it gives a good starting point, for instrument troubleshooting, because it's just basically searching the web very quickly and giving you some options. So as a tool, excellent, wonderful thing to have. Nice way to get meeting insights or, other, types of summarization. But where our biggest concern is, where my biggest concern is, like others have mentioned, I've had people come in and try to sell it, and out of my own curiosity have seen those demos. And what I'm concerned about is because if we write or make a suggestion that some sort of legislation or regulation needs to be made, it has to be highly specific. Because what these salespeople were very good at was selling you about how it was compliant, about how it got around the current rules. You know, like if you have a AI bot that preps and not preps, but that evaluates and integrates all of your data for you, but an analyst then reviews and signs off on it, well, then to them that was compliant. So we kind of have to really, it's going to have to be an in the weeds discussion, because the other thing that's coming down the pipeline is, because everyone's trying to integrate AI, is as we buy new pieces of instrumentation and they upgrade their analytical software, there's going to be AI built into that. And so again, an AI helper or assistant or something that helps you move one thing to another, provided that that data is safe and self-contained within the environment, that's fine. But my concern is once the AI starts making scientific decisions, once the AI decides where manual integrations go or do not go. You know, we use PFAS as an example because that's, you know, you have some isomers that are branched and some that aren't. So how does AI make those decisions? And can we defend those decisions in court? So all of those type of examples, I really think that if anything that gets written, it has to be hyper specific, because all of the ways around it are already come in. And then I would say within the next 2 to 3 years, it'll be unavoidable when we buy instrumentation.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're right with the being very specific, and these vendors are always going to try to sell their thing, and yeah, they've come to my lab too and say, oh yeah, no, it's totally compliant. Don't worry about it. But it's, you know, I think we should have some, or a lab at least should have something that's specific and say, hey, we maybe evaluate every 6 months as technology matures. But it should be specific. Like you cannot use it for these things, like Rachel mentioned, making scientific decisions. That has to be a person. I think without a doubt has to be a person. There's no way that an AI can make those calls. Maybe you can have it make a suggestion or say, hey, look at these for manual integration or whatever, but making those decisions has to go through a person. And I think it is a slippery slope though. If you have, you know, a model looking, it's like, oh, trust me, we're going to review all the peaks and only show you the ones that need manual integration. Then it turns out that the analyst maybe is not going to want to look at the other peaks. Like, oh, what the model said is cool. So you end up, you know, sliding further and further into that. The AI is making the decisions for you, and it becomes, yeah, it's kind of a tricky spot to be in. So yeah, I agree. I think very specific language should be put out there to guide this and just essentially put guardrails on this and make sure that it works in labs in a commercial setting for compliance work.
So I'm going to refocus towards topics that ELTAC can do. So one of the options that you have is to give ELAP a specific recommendation to do something specific. So what I'm hearing is it might be good for ELAP to write a regulation that limits some specific use cases for AI if one doesn't exist, right? I'm sure the TNI standard has some broad language about something that yeah. I don't know if I know TNI is working on the new one. I don't know if they mention it at all in that one. But it sounds like that's kind of the direction you want to give. So to make the recommendations most useful, what would be helpful to us is a list of things that should and should not be allowed. That would be nice. And a direction of like, we want you to do this now, or we want you to do this when you get around to rulemaking. I don't think we have any slated in the nearish future for us. We might have to, depending on how we move through TNI implementation and stuff like that. But we don't have anything that would be broadly applicable to everybody right now, at least not that I'm aware of. So it sounds like that's the path you are thinking about. So there's two options to like get something developed, a work group or a subcommittee, and you can vote to form one of those and give us some guidance and a specific recommendation, or you can just, we can keep this as an LTAC topic and keep coming back to it every 6 months. But however you guys want to do it, it's up to you.
So I mean, my preference is to have ELAP put out regulations ASAP. I mean, I don't like regulations. I think regulations are, if we can reduce them, is better, right? But yeah, I think for this, it needs to be, I think, something firm and soon. Like this is a evolving landscape. Like I've given a couple A talks now over the last couple of months, and they're already out of date. I mean, that stuff changes very quickly. So my preference, if there's no objections from the rest of LTAC, is to ask ELAP to put out regulatory language or something for this, and maybe make a subcommittee in LTAC to provide the points of the things that LTAC thinks maybe should not be included or should be included in the rulemaking of prohibited actions or prohibited things. Any objections to that from LTAC?
No, not from.
One thing that I just want to note is that I think there needs to be a distinction based on what is considered AI, what is considered already built into the software. Talking about integrations, the software already does automatic integration.
Yes.
Where you can adjust the parameters to get you what you want. It needs to be specified. Is that AI? Is that not AI? And that kind of, you don't want to put something in the regulation that now makes it so you can no longer use your software integrator.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we're already using AI. Like if you do a calibration curve and do a like a linear regression, that's pretty much artificial intelligence in the broadest sense of the term. So yeah, I think it's important to not hamstring the laboratories from adopting technology either that we've already been using or actually would be beneficial. So that's where I think the input from LTAC would be beneficial to say, hey, look, this stuff is okay. This stuff maybe, or maybe not prohibited, but with some guidance where ELAB can provide input and a laboratory says, I want to use this, and ELAB can maybe decide yes or no. And I know you guys love getting a lot of emails, so I think getting more of those would be not ideal, but we can maybe have something like that. But yeah, I agree, Paul, that it has to be in a way that makes sense, because you don't want to all of a sudden say, okay, now you're going to be cutting out peaks on paper and weighing them again. Like we don't want to go back in time to the Stone Age. We want to keep things going.
Hi, this is Mike from ELAP. I just wanted to say, so the process of us going back to TNI will have a regulatory update component to it, and we can keep that in mind using the output from LTAC and the feedback mechanisms. So
And I will jump in saying for rulemaking, having a written document that we can incorporate and use and as a material reference is more helpful than the verbal link to the recording of this meeting. So to that end, I don't know if I can do this. Maybe I can. I'd like to propose that either LTAC vote to form a work group or a subcommittee to, I agree with Paul, that's a great idea, to define what AI is and where it could or could not be allowed. And as a recommendation, it would be like LTAC would like ELAP to adopt regulations that do this. And then here's the definition of AI and when you could or could not use it.
Yeah, I'll first then, I guess. Yes, if you can't vote, then I'll also propose it. So yeah, I think
clarify if it's a work group or a subcommittee before we vote on it.
Clarify if a work group or subcommittee.
I think for this to be subcommittee would make more sense. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Vote for a subcommittee.
All right, voting for a subcommittee. Peter Arth.
Oh wait, do we need a second for the subcommittee part?
Moving ahead of myself. I want a second.
Sure, I'll second.
All right, now we'll actually vote. Peter Arth.
I see him. He's off, so maybe he'll mark us abstain.
Abstain. Samuel Choi.
Aye.
Augustin Pieri.
Aye.
Paul Monroy for Sashmita.
Aye.
Judy is out. Saguna Pillay,
Aye.
Teresa Johnson,
Aye.
James Forrest,
Aye.
Kelvin Ewan,
Aye.
and Rachel Cahill.
Aye.
Okay, and with that, I think the motion passes.
Excellent. Okay, so for subcommittees, you can have members of ELTAC. I think I need to change the bylaw language because I'm pretty sure you can have more than the quorum, but because subcommittee work could be voted on separately or could be voted on here in front of the thing, I think it'd be best to keep it to less than a quorum, but it could also include members of the public who are interested. So we'll pick a subcommittee chair, whoever wants to do that. We'll assign an ELAP staff. It might be me, it might be somebody else. We'll have a representative there, and we'll help coordinate and for announcements and meetings and things like that. But for those who want to be a member, on the subcommittee, and who wants to chair the subcommittee.
I'll chair, I guess. Unless somebody wants to. If someone wants to chair it, I'm happy to step aside. But if not, I'll happy to do it.
I'll join
I'll
as
be
a member, if that's okay.
I too will join as a member.
I'll join as a member as well.
All right, I got 4 on there, so that seems like an appropriate number. And the charge for this subcommittee is to develop a definition of AI, develop use cases for where it should and should not be used, and draft a recommendation for ELTAC to vote on of we want ELEP to do this specific action.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. I'll talk with you about meeting times and how often you guys want to meet and stuff like that. We'll do that offline.
Yeah.
And
and that'll
then
be virtual.
Yes.
Yes. So
I do have a quick comment in terms of what Paul was talking about, because we were talking about AI earlier and not used for data review. But I believe a form of AI is still being used for flagging LIMS data, and we don't know. As at this point, it's not considered AI, or it is on that very gray line. So we will still continue to do that for data review. I just wanted to bring it up.
yeah, I think that's a good point because I think everybody's using it inadvertently or not. I mean, everybody's is somehow using these tools. I think the part of the subcommittee would be to, I think we could put in like a survey or like a series of questions to answer about a process to determine if it's appropriate or not. I think that would be the best use instead of having, very specific, use it for this and use it for that, or don't use it for that, because these vendors will say, oh, well, there's a way around this and, semantics maybe change. But if we can put together a framework of like a test, there we go, that's what I'm looking for, a test to determine if a process is appropriate or not. And I think the first one would be, is it traceable? Is it repeatable? Is it auditable? Is it, that kind of stuff. And if we can put that together, it would be a useful component for the rulemaking instead of having a document that would have to get updated every couple months when new technology is out. Maybe we just put in a test and say, this is the requirement. If it passes, great, use it. If it doesn't pass, don't use it. Because that way we can capture future technology improvements, maybe.
I like that idea. Yeah, that's a good one.
Another use that I've noticed that labs have commented on is about uploading standard methods and trying to compare different methods. And are we breaching any copyright issues? That did come up, and I did want to bring that up to the committee too.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem. And I think a lot of these models are getting some hot water for exactly that, where they're using copyright data or information that's behind a paywall or something without actually paying for it because they're just scraping tons and tons of data. So I think we could put in language about that, which I think we should, in terms of where this data goes, because it also will tie into the privacy of customer data or compliance data. So in our case, we have data from a lot of vendors or a lot of customers, and I don't want to go and ask each one of them if I could use their VOC data from last year to train an AI model that someone's going to use maybe all over the world. So I think we could put in language of restrictions on where that goes. And like we use closed models. So when we train our agents, we use a large language model base to do the interpretation, but the training data is all our data that's closed, so that it's not available for them to use. It's our proprietary SOPs and our QA manual, and then again the copyrighted material that we've purchased, so like standard methods or the TNI standard, things that we've paid for that we don't want out there because we don't have the right to distribute those things. We can put those into private models or private agents and do that way. So I think there's a framework to make sure that does stay legally okay. But that's a good point that everybody should be aware of.
The last comment is I do have a curiosity question. Agencies as mine, they use Gov AI. I'm just curious, how many do others use that, or do they have a different one that their agency lets you use? Because our agency has already developed a policy around that in terms of how to use it, and requires us to abide by those agreements. So
I'm unfamiliar with that, but I think that would be, if you have a policy already, that'd be a great starting point for this work group to kind of use those principles and as guiding for what we're trying to accomplish. So that'd be very helpful. I don't know if any other agencies have something similar.
I know for Desert Water Agency, they're in the process of putting together usage guidelines for us. It's specific, of course, for the office operations, not necessarily the laboratory, but we'll see where that goes once it starts getting developed.
Same here too. Our agency has an AI committee trying to put together some kind of AI policy in there for the whole agency, but not necessarily the lab session. I think most of us use AI at the personal level, the free version, not the enterprise version. So this is something that we're looking into. Yeah, I think the concern we have is that, we try to, protect the sensitive lab data. So we try not to share all those data to the free version that may be exposed to the public and maybe use it for train the AI model. So we wait until we maybe select AI chatbot for the enterprise version first before we proceed to the next step.
We use AI for the administrative things that I mentioned earlier, like meeting notes and minutes. I don't think anybody actually takes minutes anymore. But anything, lab related has been we're not touching that, but we do use it throughout the company. It's a much bigger company than it goes beyond just the water lab. So they use it in lots of, engineering things and I don't really know the details as to that side of it, how deep they go, but I know they use it a lot. They have contracted companies and have, ongoing, like an annual contract with these companies that upkeep all that kind of stuff.
Power's fun. Okay, great. I think these are all like really good ideas. I think for the subcommittee, you can always ask for more information too. So like if you want to bring in an ELTAC member to say, hey, we know you have a lot of information. Can you give us this charge? Those are fine. It's the forum issues for voting purposes. So
Okay.
that's why it's like, I don't really know that. But those all be open to the public too.
Yeah.
In terms of posting, we'll have them all virtually, and we can dive deeper into the charge and kind of get some ideas going
Yeah.
around there.
Yeah. And I think for the other LTAC members, if you have, like Kelvin mentioned, that you have an AI team at LA County Sanitation, that if you have people that are not LTAC members that are subject matter experts that you'd want to volunteer or would want to volunteer for this, we can have outside people um, as informational, non-voting, blah 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 kind of stuff. So it'd be helpful to get perspective from different agencies, because I could, the four of us can sit together and put something together. But if we have some input from how other people are doing this, I think it'd be helpful. So if you have any volunteers or anybody you'd like to volunteer or voluntold, send me an email. We'll include them and make it happen.
Yeah, that sounds great because I'm obviously we're not like AI expert here, and I would when it comes to AI, I usually run it by my two LIMS administrator. They have a lot more expertise on data management, AI development, stuff like that. So if we are open to invite non-LTAP members to join the subcommittee or work group, I think that would be really beneficial.
Yeah, I think we'll value their input too. And I think especially for something like this where it's kind of new, having multiple perspectives would be helpful. So yeah, that'd be great. Just send them my way and then we'll include them.
All right, I'm gonna look over. No comments on the agenda topic. I don't want to end the discussion early, but I am thinking about logistics, and I think we don't have very many more topics on our list. So I think if every member is amenable to powering through and finishing the bylaw revision and covering anything that wasn't on the agenda, and then ending without a lunch break, and then having lunch afterwards, if that's okay. I'm seeing head
Works.
nods,
Yeah.
so that sounds good to me. I don't think we need to vote on that, but yeah, everyone here seems to be ready about it. So, okay, the next item that we have on our list then is the LTAC bylaw revisions. So I shared with all the members the track changes copy. There is a clean copy that's posted on the webpage for a clean deliberative copy that we would like to vote on. But I do want to highlight a couple things in terms of what has changed. So there was a new Senate bill that extended the allowance for a set of virtual meetings for advisory bodies like LTAC. They extended it until 2030, which is far enough away that I don't think we really need to address it in the bylaws, and we'll come back to it again, assuming they don't extend it. But 2030 seems more likely than not that it'll be around here for good. So to that end, I took out the bit about the quorum of members needing to be present in person. So that's in Article 6, Operational Procedures. So a quorum is 1/2 plus 1 of representatives. And we're defining it to be those voting members because it doesn't make sense to restrict the membership that of the non-voting members. And the meetings are set to be on or near the second Wednesday of May. So that'll be the spring meeting. So that'll be the next one, somewhere around there. We might adjust it like we did with this one due to timing of availability of rooms, because we still need a public meeting room. So there will be a presence in Sacramento. It'll probably just be me alone in a conference room, which I'm totally fine with. But I did keep in there that LTAC members should endeavor to attend the meetings in person. So it's not a everyone must come in person. It's a you try to come in person when you can, right? There is a requirement for notification of if you are attending virtually. That's still left in. You have to let me know 48 hours ahead of time. I still don't know 100% why that fits in the statute, but that's there. You have to let me know. But that's the major change from the last update that we had when we discussed this at the last meeting. And that's really the only change that's different from the last copy. So now everyone has this. I'm open to making any sort of minor changes to. If you have a major one, we'll absolutely talk about it and discuss it. But then if not, then I'll call for a vote. So go ahead. No, you had nothing? Okay. Anyone got any comments about the bylaws or anything that needed to be changed or updated? Okay, great. Well, then I'll push it forward for a vote. We'll do this via roll call
Yes.
vote. We don't need to motion or second it. This is us saying this is what we said we were going to do last time, and this is us doing it. So if I could get a yay, nay, or abstain, we'll go through the roll call. And this is just for, let me double check it here. I'm pretty sure I took it out, as there's the issue about voting. Changes may be proposed by either voting or non-voting members, and they're amended by 2/3 majority vote. Not a straight majority like everything else. So we need 2/3 to say aye. Okay, go ahead.
All right. Peter Arth. Nope, still no. Okay.
Yeah.
Samuel Choi.
Aye.
Augustine Pieri.
Aye.
Paul Monroy for Sashmita.
Aye.
Judy is not here. Saguna Pillay.
Aye.
Teresa Johnson.
Aye.
James Forrest.
Aye.
Kelvin Ewan.
Aye.
And Rachel Cahill.
Aye.
Great.
The motion passes. We now have new bylaws. They're open to amendments whenever anyone has something that, hey, actually, we should put this in here. So with that, I will move on to item number 8 for anything that isn't on the agenda. So this could be from members where we want to plan more bits for our next meeting, or members of the public. And before we jump into public comments, I did want to cover our action items that we had listed here, just to make sure we're all on the same page. So we have a work group created for methylene chloride. That's with Augustine, Teresa, James, Kelvin, and Rachel. And that's to create a cheat sheet on the methylene chloride regs and to draft a letter that ELTAC would like to send to EPA. So for an allowance for method updates and method modifications and things like that. Okay. We have a subcommittee that was created for AI use that's going to define AI, when it should and should not be used, possibly have an AI test of this is when you can use it and this is when you can't, and have draft a recommendation for ELAP that the full ELTAC committee will vote on whenever that is completed. And we'll discuss those kind of things. I'll discuss that with the subcommittee there for meetings and things like that. And that's going to be chaired by Augustine, along with James, Suguna, and Rachel. And that'll cover AI use. That one will be meeting more frequently than the full committee. So we'll probably have the next one, I'm going to guess next year, January, something like that. And that'll be announced just like a normal ELTAC meeting. ELTAC members are always welcome to attend those ones. There's like a disclaimer that says there might be a quorum of members here, but no formal action is taken by ELTAC on the subcommittees, right? And with that, I'll move over. I know we have one public comment. I know he was having trouble with audio, but Jim, if you can unmute and bring your comment forward. If not, then we'll read your email. Okay, he's got a chat instead. Okay, great. So this is specific. This is an issue that ELAP is aware of, but since Washington State Laboratory is no longer providing PT samples for crypto and Giardia, we're the only provider, and they're wondering going forward, how is this going to affect certification for all the methods in FOA Table 129 parasites in non-potable water. Jim, I'm going to send you an email after this. We had established, I'm going to say like a task force specific to this item because ELAP was aware that the PT provider, I think the last one was in maybe October. It was recent. They said they weren't going to do it in earlier this year, and then they did another one afterwards. But we'd love to have your input on that. There's not very many laboratories that do this. I think there were 9. Yeah, and the ones of those 9, there's a lot of them that have already dropped off because they're not needed, or they're not needed for their specific use case, right? So there is a need still from the Division of Drinking Water for crypto and Giardia testing. Specifically, that rule that EPA put in there, the LT2 rule, does require it whenever there's a new water source and a bunch of categories of things. And I do a poor job summarizing when it would or would not be required. But if you're interested, Jim, we'd love to have you provide some input and provide some help for how exactly ELAP's going to do that as sort of an alternate demonstration of capability. So we'll connect with you on that. But I don't know if any ELTAC members want to add any input on cryptosporidium and Giardia. I know it's not one of the most popular tests around, but
Well, since our last work group meeting, I haven't really done a lot of additional research, but I did pull it out yesterday to relook at it, but I haven't done any additional insights to it. One of my questions actually was, I know we were talking with one of the labs, I forget, they were going to send us over some information.
oh yes, I have that information. Yeah. And it's more of ELAP's trying to design what the alternate would be, right? So in our rules, you have to do a PT sample if one's available, and if one's not available, ELAP may request an alternative demonstration of capability. It's a lot easier for chemistry because it's like, oh, give me your LCS data and give me your MBL study, and cryptosporidium and Giardia don't really fit in those nice buckets very well. So yes, we'll share that with you too. And then Jim, if you're interested, we have your email now. We're going to send you an email. Hopefully get you involved too. Do we have any other?
Oh, quiet over here.
No other public comments. Okay, great. If any LTAC members want to bring up anything that's not on the list, something that they want to do for the next one, for next LTAC meetings.
Oh, I would like to see a presentation, if possible, on getting ELAB certified during lab move.
Update for like in terms of ELAP clarification on the location changes?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah. I'll add that to our list of.
Could we also elaborate on that as if, say you're in a campus structured suite area of a building, right? If you occupy suite A and now you're going to take over suite D, is that also considered relocation because it's a suite number but not a physical address change? I know that's been a topic
Yes.
before.
Yeah.
It'll be coming for me soon too. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. So the statute requires the laboratory certificate to be forfeited if there's any change in location or structural alteration that may affect data quality. So that's what the regs are in there for. So I don't want to summarize them too much without getting them correct. Mike over here said yes. We're always open to getting emails about, hey, we're going to change this thing, and then us telling you, oh, you don't need to worry about it. That's on our end, that's way easier for us to control. But I think that's a good idea. I think that might be a good one to either, and I'm going to deflect a little bit, either bring it to LTAC as like an info item or possibly put it in our ELAPCon. I don't know the focus of that yet, so that might be a good place for it too.
Yeah, and I'll say that I want to underscore the importance of working with us early, right? If you know that something is going to be needed at your site, work with us early, and we can figure it out together.
And I think to that point, I could also, by the next meeting, I could also give some input because we're going to go through that soon. So I'll say it went great. and everything was perfect, hopefully. But yeah,
Yeah.
well, I'm happy to provide some input too.
Yeah, I think it's a great LTAC topic.
That's a good one. I like that one. Somebody reminded me that I forgot one of the other action items we have is for our drinking water FOA updates. We want comments and feedback from LTAC members when those go live, and members of the community. So those will go out, and we want your feedback on those too. But
Will those go out to the member community at large?
Yeah.
Only, or LTAC and the community at large?
Both.
Okay.
Any other topics or items you'd like to see LTAC take on in future meetings? Because that was a good one. You don't need to think of them now. You can always email Augustine or myself or Shrishmitha if you have a topic that you want LTAC to tackle. In the bylaws that we just voted on, it says get them to us 30 days in advance. That just gives me plenty of time to make sure that they're on the agenda. Because one of the restrictions under the Bagley Keene is we can only vote on things if they're on the agenda. So if it's not on the agenda, we're not going to be able to vote for it. So that's why we want them early. So that way we can make sure they're there. Last call for no comments. Okay. With that, I guess I'll offer anyone to make a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
I'll second.
All right, and then I'll just take a little thumbs up, and I don't think we need to vote on adjourning, but thanks everyone for attending this LTAC meeting. The next one will be somewhere around May, and then we'll get that announcement, and hopefully that room booked with a date set way more in advance, so we don't have to push it back and delay it like we did for this one. So thank you, everyone. And with that, have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye.